Alright, this tutorial comes from a lot of you guys asking how to use the pen tool. So, did a tutorial on this on the NetMember homepage about a month ago, and I'm going to kind of take it a step further here. We're going to create an effect I call silhouette illustration, where you create a silhouette of someone, you draw a silhouette, but instead of just drawing the silhouette like you saw in those old Apple iPod commercials, instead of drawing the whole figure, you just draw very specific areas in that silhouette that just kind of bring out the details so someone can figure out what it is. So this is what we're going to end up with. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we start with here. That is not what we start with. This is what we start with, and it's just a regular photo. So that's all you need to do. There's nothing special. I'm going to go over to my layers palette, and I had a couple adjustment layers here to help me out, and I'm going to show you what we can do with those. But the first thing you do is just take a look at the photo, and you can see some of these bright areas are going to be some of the areas we want to recreate. So I want to help bring them out more to make it easier for me to trace. So I'm going to go to pick on the new adjustment layer here. I'm going to choose levels. I'm just going to bring this black slider over to the right. See what it does. It kind of darkens up all this area, but really shows me some of the bright areas that stick out of this photo. Then I'll bring the white slider over. It just helps accentuate some of those areas, especially around the face and the hat here. So now I'm starting to get an idea of what I might want to trace. So we'll click OK, and we'll leave that there, and we'll add another one called posterize. And I'm just going to use 4 levels, and we'll click OK. And that's before and that's after. So what this does is kind of breaks the image up into solid colors for me, and it just makes it easier to trace. So now as I look at this, I can start to see some of the areas I might want to trace. You can see along the shirt here, see the folds there? That's really what's going to help give this image some life. Instead of just being a flat silhouette illustration, we'll actually be able to almost convey the feeling of movement and twisting by getting these folds in the shirt there. So now we need to start tracing. So let's go over to the paths palette here, and that's where we're going to start tracing. And I've got some paths created already. I'm going to show you what I did with those, but first let's just create our own. So let's click the new path button. That creates a new path at the bottom of your paths palette, and just click on that. Then go over to the toolbox and select your pen tool. Now up in the options bar, you're going to see 3 options up here. One is a shape layer, one says paths, and then one says fill pixels. What you want to do is select the paths option here, because we just want to draw a path. We don't want to fill it with anything yet. Alright, so now that you've got all that taken care of, we need to start tracing. So I'm going to click once at the bottom here, and then I'm going to click and drag on some type of a curved area here. So I'm just going to click and drag and see what happens. See, I'm taking that directional handle, I'm dragging it along the curvature of the body here. So that's how these things work. You take these directional handles and you move them and drag them in the ways that you want the curve to go. So I dragged it along the curve, and then I'm just going to click up here again, and you can see that it automatically starts to curve around there for me. So I didn't really have to do anything. Now we need to get a little more detailed, so I'm just going to zoom in a little here. And I need to start going along these very bright areas here. So I want to start drawing my path along them. So in order to do that, the first thing I need to do, if I click down here, see how my path kind of bowed out? It followed that directional handle. I don't really want that. I want to be able to get a corner point here. So to do that, hold down your Alt or your Option key, and you can see that little triangle next to the pen, and just click, and it got rid of that directional handle. And now I can click there, and I get a nice corner point. You're going to be doing this a lot. You're going to hold down the Alt or the Option key, click on the point, draw a curve here, hold down the Alt or the Option key again, and just try to create these paths that follow the curvature here. You don't need to go through every single detail. All you need to do is just go for the main details. I'm not going to trace the pixelated edge here. I'm just going to trace the curve. And we'll keep doing this. Click. Let's zoom out a little bit here. Click again. Maybe create a curve and hold down that Alt or the Option key. And again, you can start to draw along these curved surfaces. Just click on those anchor points on the corner there, and it can take some time. I'm not going to lie to you. It takes a little bit of time. The more detailed you want it to be, the better you want it to look, the more time you're going to have to spend with it. So again, I draw these curved surfaces. I need to Alt or Option click and just keep on clicking along there. I could spend all day on this, so let's just go ahead and we'll end it right here. And we've got our path. Now I'm going to zoom out and you can see I went along the edge here. I'm going to do that through the whole illustration. I'm not going to do it here because frankly we'll be sitting here for about 30 minutes if I do, so you don't want to download for 2 hours. So you get the idea of what I did. I did the same thing along the face. You can even see if I zoom in here, you can even see right along the nose there's a highlight there. Along the hat there's a highlight. And then right here along the top of the hat there's another highlight. So you can see those are all things I traced. I'll even show you the paths that I traced them with. They're right up here. So you can see I did the golf club. I did some of the hands over here. That's the face. That's the little highlight along the nose. I kind of added some of the ear in there, and I did the same thing on the hat. So it's as much of an artistic ability as it is technical. Technically, you need to know what to look for here, but artistically, you need to kind of add some things in. All right, so now that we've got our paths created, let's go ahead. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and we need to fill these paths. So I'm going to go over to Layers palette. I'm going to create a new blank path on top of our new blank layer. I've got paths on my mind. I'm going to create a new blank layer on top of all the other ones. And then set my foreground color to white. So press the D and then the X key. Go back over to your Paths palette and click once on the path that you drew on. And then see this little button at the bottom here, Fill Path with Foreground Color. Well, if I click that, it fills the path with whatever my foreground color was. So look at that there. See that? That whole shape is now filled with white. I'm going to do the same thing. Remember I drew all those other shapes beforehand. I drew them all on this one path layer. You can create new path layers for everything, or you can just draw them all in once. It's really a personal preference there. I prefer to draw most of them on their own layers. Sometimes I'll draw multiple paths on the same layer here. But click on that one. And then just click the fill path with foreground color again, and now let's click off of that path here, so now we don't see that outline anymore. Go over to our layers palette and you can see here I can show and hide that. Last thing you might want to do is to just take this and move it over onto another illustration. You could always just add a background to it, so we'll create a new layer, drag that below, and we'll fill it maybe with a kind of a greenish color here. And now we can really start to see that illustration pop off of the screen. And then the last thing, as I showed you earlier, this is what we started with. It was just on a golf ad here. So there's a lot of different things you can do with it, a lot of different uses for it. So definitely encourage you to explore it. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we will see you again next time. Thanks.